This pile of logs is one of several scattered around this block that I've been cutting on the past few days. I've got two objectives for today's video. One is to see how much productivity I would have with one person over a 6-hour time frame doing selective harvesting of mostly hardwood trees with just myself and my chainsaw and my hand tools out here. The other objective is to test these Swedish military boots, and we'll do a review on those down the road. Right now we're going to go over to our first pile where we have some runners down and where we're going to start cutting for the day. This is where I left off yesterday. I've got a small pile of logs here. We're going to just continue piling up over top of this, and as I go I'm going to count the number of logs I cut today. We'll tally it up at the end of the video and see how well I do. Nice maple here that I want to keep. Now I'm just going to go around down through here. You can see the markers on the trees and trim this section out. I'm not sure which way it's going to fall. I'll usually notch it to whatever side I'd like it to go to. Here was my open space to lie this one down. After I cut each tree, I always take the time to take the main lengths of it right away, and then I just have to come back, knock a few limbs off, and I can carry those pieces out to my pile. First hour of cutting, and we're at 46 trees so far. This is going to be tree number 50. The objective here is to open up the sunlight from the canopy so that when we come through here next spring and plant, there's enough sunlight to let those clover and hay and things grow. Most of what I've cut today has been hardwood because that's easy for me to junk and carry off and pile. It doesn't involve taking the bark off it. And this time of year is a bad time to be trying to take the bark off of any tree. There's not enough moisture in the softwood trees, and so the bark sticks to it quite badly. You want to do that type of work usually in the spring when everything gets really wet. But some of my softwood trees, like this one behind me, has a split top, and it's really no good. There's no usable length of straight log anywhere on it. So we're going to take that down. That's going to be tree number 50 so far today. And when that drops, you're going to be able to see just how much sunlight a tree like that would bring down into the floor of the forest. I don't want this to land on the camera. We're going to try to send it this way. Here's my notch. For the big softwood tree we just cut down. Now we've got a nice maple right here. That's a nice diameter, so we're going to keep that. And we're going to finish competition right here, which is another smaller maple that didn't quite make it up to the canopy. This one I might get an 8-foot pole. That's straight up to about here. That's 54 trees, 1 tank of gas so far. We'll go refuel and go back at it. Tires are changed. We're ready to go back to the race. I keep a sled with me this time of year. We always try to keep our chainsaw off the ground and dry, and then we're going to haul this through with our hand tools and start cleaning up the mess from the 55 trees we cut here this morning. Okay, so what we're working on here is about 1/8 of an acre this morning. We've got about 1/4 of an acre in total to clear on this side of our driveway, and then we have to go back to a different block of woods. I'm going to pan around here in a moment and show what it looks like in this area, having dropped the first 50 or so trees before we start our cleanup. Here's panning around, you can start to see the trees that are all down through here. Some here. And we started over here this morning. Some trees down mean 50 some odd ribbons probably on these trees, unless I could make a decision right on the fly that, you know, a tree didn't look good enough to keep. Most of these I come through and I mark first ahead of time, and I'm going to take the time next to go through and pick up as many of these ribbons as I can. The reason being, if you start alternating between doing that and then putting your gloves on and hauling the logs out, you end up with the inside of your gloves soaking wet, and that makes the rest of your afternoon pretty lousy. And so I'm going to go around with my bare hands and take off all of these things first, and then we'll come back through with the gloves on and start hauling these lengths over to a pile. Now, I do this just to be environmentally conscious. I don't like to leave any plastic in my woods, and I also reuse these. Rather than throwing plastic out in the garbage, I'll go around and mark other trees further along in my block. We're an hour and 45 minutes into our day. I just had maybe 30-minute break to go around and pick up all the flags from off the trees we cut. Now I have to go and pick up all the trees themselves. So we're right back where we started with the small pile of logs that I had here from yesterday. And we're going to start moving more trees onto this pile. I've got this coat on here specifically to do this type of work, because it's waterproof Cordura nylon, keeps me dry, and it also takes the abrasion of moving tree lengths like this. Pretty much nothing else I wear will hold up to the abrasion, and I'd end up wet within a few minutes of picking up these tree trunks off the ground, off the snow. So it might be hard to see, but there's runners down here, or skids underneath this pile of wood. Here's the end of one right here. That's to keep your wood up off the snow and ground. And in the spring especially, things usually get quite wet in the woods. And so this keeps everything off the ground and keeps it from rotting and allows airflow underneath through the spring until I can come back and pick up my logs. You can see here the diameter of some of the logs that we're dealing with. This would be on the I don't know, mid to large size for what I have in this block of woods. Or out of most trees I get 2 to 3 good lengths at the bottom, and then sometimes I have to do a bit of limbing work up at the top to get like one more useful length for firewood. So I'll bring logs over to this, you guys. I'll haul logs onto this pile until I get a certain distance from it to where it makes no more sense to bring them here, and I put that down more skids, and I'll start another pile, you know, close to my main trails where I can pick them up. Here's the top of a maple tree. Because I don't like to waste anything, I go through and even clean this type of thing up. This takes more time than the best pieces that you get from your tree, the bottom 2 or 3 lengths before this. You don't want branches on your hardwood when you go to stack it on your firewood pile, or it becomes a big mess. It all gets intertwined, which makes it hard to move again when you go to transport your logs off of the block of land, and it just takes up more space. So I always take the time to clean up my pieces of wood as best I can. Now, while I do this at the top of these trees, I'm always looking for Irish shillelaghs as well. So if I can find a piece that's, you know, this long and nice and straight and has some kind of a ball at the top or something, then makes a nice fighting club, and I'll also keep my eye out for that stuff. And what's left here is basically garbage. I got to decide if I want to continue piling this on my brush fences to try to hem my dogs and other animals into this block, or if I want to make a big pile of this sometime and try to produce some biochar to spread out around this pasture area. Really hard to say. So this is one way that I dispose of my brush, and this helps to keep my wandering Kangol from jumping out of here and taking off on me. We're just over 3 hours into our day, and this is all the firewood within a reasonable radius of this pile that I cut that I can pull back to here. We still have more pieces down over in that direction, and so I'm going to start a new pile now about 60 feet, say, in that direction there, just off of one of our ATV trails. If I were to cut all this up and pile it, I'd have a good quarter of a cord of wood. So maybe by the end of the day, we'll have brought down half a cord. I just noticed under the snow here, I must have already put a couple skids down and had a few pieces sitting here. So I'm just going to extend the side out here to give us more space, and then we'll start putting our logs on here from anywhere around the radius here. So although this is softwood and it has quite a bend in it right here, I'll probably use it for a skid for more wood piles, and so I tend to take all the branches off of these as well, just so you're not tripping over them, and you can, again, use them for another purpose. Another skid. Come on. Hey, that's everything behind me and around this area cleaned up. We're up to about half a cord of wood today so far. 54 trees we cut. I got about 25 minutes left. I'm going to fire up the chainsaw and see if I can get to 6 more. That's 60 trees in all today. 60 trees in 6 hours. Let's take a quick walk around, and you wouldn't know that 60 trees were cut through this 1/8 of an acre that we're on today. I've got everything cleaned up with exception of the big softwood tree that we cut down earlier. That's right over here. So softwood trees take an inordinate amount of time, so I'll have to come back to finish that. Otherwise, we're just going to wheel around through here. This was the last clump that I cut at to get my final 6 trees. You can see everything's cleared through here, and because I can't see the ground, I left some stakes here at the perimeter of where my pigs left off. Another one over here. So I'm going to take my logging to at least this line this year, and maybe a little bit beyond, as this is easterly facing over here. And the more I can thin out of there, the more sun that's going to come in the morning and hit our pasture. But if we keep going this direction, there's our log pile. In that direction is our fencing running through here. And looking down through there, you can see I have nice open pasture to come in here and plant next year. And most of my landscaping is done all the way up to where we're at right here. So with all the brush gone and the landscaping done, the first nice rain in the spring, I can come in here and plant that whole area. Sorry if the camera was shaky on our walk. There's not much I can do about that. So 60 trees in 6 hours. Let's look at that productivity. That would be 10 trees per hour. And that's cut up and piled here in lengths and completely disposed of. So in all, this amounted to about half a cord of wood. Half a cord of wood here sells for $100 Canadian, and there's a lot left to do yet. I still have to come through here with my ATV and trailer, pick all of these logs up. There's probably 4 or 5 loads at least in each of these piles, so that may be 10 trips around the block. Take it to where I cut it all in lengths and split any of it that's big enough diameter to split. Pile it all. By the time I'm done, most of my work is probably on that end, and I would be down to like $5 Canadian that I'd be making off the actual logging here. I don't think I could pay anybody $5 an hour to come out here and do this type of work. But all that said, what I'm hoping it does is improve the value of my land, and maybe I'm going to recoup some of that on an increased value in my property here. The other thing to touch on today is I've been 6 hours in these Swedish military boots from 1960, and my feet are completely dry and warm the entire day. This has actually been the driest that my feet have stayed wearing any other type of boot out here. These boots are awesome. I'll have a review on these boots coming up in another video soon. Thank you for watching. Like and subscribe to the channel.